On March 27, 1977, at Los Rodeos Airport, dense fog reduced visibility to under 300 meters. But the weather alone did not kill 583 people. The deadliest assumption was made not in the fog, but in a cockpit. A single ambiguous phrase, "We are now at takeoff," triggered the chain of events that became aviation's darkest day. KLM Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten transmitted those words to the tower, believing he had takeoff clearance. But he did not. The tower had only said, "After takeoff, contact departure." A routine instruction, not a clearance. The word takeoff was used in a non-clearance context, and that ambiguity proved fatal. So while the fog hid the Pan Am 747 still taxiing on the runway, the radio ambiguity hid the truth. The KLM flight was already rolling. The collision that followed was not an act of nature, it was a failure of communication. And it changed aviation forever. Why were two jumbo jets stuck at a small regional airport? It started with a bomb threat at Gran Canaria Airport, forcing KLM Flight 4805 and Pan Am Flight 1736 to divert to Los Rodeos on Tenerife. That detour set the stage for disaster. But Los Rodeos was never meant for jumbo jets. Its single runway and cramped apron soon became a parking lot, and then the fog rolled in. Thick Atlantic fog that dropped visibility to under 300 meters, blanketing the airport in a silent white shroud. So why did nobody simply wait for the fog to lift? Because the KLM crew was racing against time. Their duty hours were nearly exhausted. If they didn't take off soon, the entire flight would be cancelled, stranding passengers and costing the airline a fortune. That pressure, combined with the fog, forced a decision. Both aircraft would have to use the same runway, the only one, for takeoffs and taxiing. The airport became a trap, and the stage was set for a fatal misunderstanding. What made Los Rodeos so dangerous for jumbo jets? The airport was a regional field, never designed for 747s. Its single runway had only one taxiway exit a 747 could use. The third, nearly 2 kilometers from the threshold. The Pan Am crew, unfamiliar with the field, struggled to see exit signs in the fog. They overshot the third turnoff, continuing down the runway. Meanwhile, KLM Captain Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten was under pressure. His crew's duty time was nearly exhausted. He taxied to the runway threshold and began his takeoff roll. The tower controller, unable to see the runway, relied on radio calls. He instructed KLM to report when ready for takeoff. But as KLM lined up, the controller also told Pan Am to report when the runway was clear. The two planes were now on a collision course, invisible to each other and to the tower. The controller then cleared KLM to follow the airway after takeoff, but never said cleared for takeoff. The KLM first officer acknowledged, but the captain, impatient and assuming clearance, pushed the throttles forward. The Pan Am crew, still taxiing, saw the KLM's landing lights emerge from the fog. It was too late. So why did nobody stop the KLM flight from taking off? The answer lies in a single ambiguous phrase. A phrase that, in the fog, sounded like clearance. The tower controller, unaware of the impending disaster, instructed the KLM crew, "After takeoff, contact departure." The KLM captain, Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, heard only the word takeoff and assumed the clearance was given. He then keyed the microphone and transmitted a non-standard phrase, "We are now at takeoff." That phrase, "We are now at takeoff," was not standard procedure. It was ambiguous, and in the fog, neither the tower nor the other crew challenged it. The tower assumed KLM was merely reporting their position, not beginning a takeoff roll. But the crew still taxiing on the runway heard the transmission and realized with horror what was happening. Their own cockpit voice recorder captured the first officer's urgent warning, "Let's get off! Get off!" The tower controller, hearing the Pan Am's alarm, immediately tried to recall the KLM flight, but the radio frequency was now a cacophony of overlapping transmissions, a deadly confusion that no one could untangle in time. And so, in the fog, the two jumbo jets converged. The KLM 747 accelerating down the runway, its nose lifting off, suddenly saw the other 747 looming ahead, a ghost in the mist. There was no time to react. The collision was catastrophic. The KLM's landing gear tore through the other plane's fuselage, and both aircraft erupted in fire. In the end, 583 people died. The ambiguity of a single phrase, "We are now at takeoff, TB," had sealed their fate. What happened in the final seconds? At 17:06, the KLM 747 thundered down the runway, its nose lifting into the fog. The other crew, still taxiing, saw the landing lights of the KLM jumbo jet emerge from the mist. Too close, too fast. The impact was catastrophic. The KLM's landing gear tore through the other plane's upper fuselage, and both aircraft erupted in fire. Of the 644 people on board, 583 perished, the deadliest accident in aviation history. This tragedy forced a rethinking of cockpit communication. The investigation laid bare the chain of failures. The report stated that the KLM captain did not wait for takeoff clearance. He assumed it was given. But it also noted that the fog, the pressure, and the ambiguous phrase, "We are now at takeoff," all played their part. The lessons were hard won. Crew resource management training was introduced, teaching pilots to speak up and challenge authority. And the word takeoff was banned from non-clearance radio calls, a simple change that would prevent the same deadly ambiguity from ever happening again. So what did the world learn from this catastrophe? The answer began with a radical idea, that a captain's authority should never silence a co-pilot's doubt. The KLM first officer had questioned the takeoff clearance, but he did not insist. The accident also rewrote the language of aviation. After Tenerife, the word takeoff was banned from all radio chatter, except when a plane was actually cleared to depart. Ambiguity had no place in the cockpit. For example, pilots now say departure instead. Today, every airline in the world drills these lessons into their crews. The result? A dramatic drop in runway incursions. In the decade after Tenerife, fatal runway collisions fell by over 70%. The KLM first officer's hesitation became a teaching point. But the KLM captain was not just impatient. He was the airline's chief flight instructor, a man accustomed to being right. His authority, combined with the ticking clock, created a cockpit where doubt was dangerous. The KLM first officer, Class Meurs, heard the tower's instruction and interpreted it correctly. No takeoff clearance. But when the captain pushed the throttles, Meurs hesitated. He said nothing more than a weak, "We are now at takeoff." Meanwhile, the other crew was lost. They had missed the third taxiway exit in the fog. Their captain, Victor Grubbs, ordered the first officer to find the next exit. They were now deep on the runway, invisible to all. The controller, alone and overwhelmed, had no radar to see the planes. He relied solely on radio calls. When KLM reported ready for takeoff, he assumed they were still at the threshold. He had no idea they were already rolling. So when the controller said, "After takeoff, contact departure," he meant it as a routine instruction. But the word takeoff triggered the KLM captain's assumption. In his mind, the clearance was implied. He released the brakes and began the roll. This was not just a communication failure, it was a human factors failure. The KLM captain's dominance silenced the first officer. The co-pilot, trained to be deferential, did not challenge the captain's assumption. Crew resource management was born from this tragedy. The other crew, hearing the KLM's takeoff roll, realised the danger. The first officer shouted, "Let's get off! Get off!" The captain slammed the throttles forward, trying to turn onto the grass. But it was too late. In the KLM cockpit, the captain saw the other plane's lights just before impact. He pulled back on the yoke, trying to lift over it. The 747's tail scraped the runway, but it was not enough. The collision was inevitable. After the collision, a deafening silence fell over the airport. The controller, realising what had happened, collapsed. The fog slowly lifted, revealing the wreckage. The world would never see aviation the same way again. But the KLM captain was not just impatient. He was the airline's chief flight instructor, a man accustomed to being right. His authority, combined with the ticking clock, created a cockpit where doubt was dangerous. The KLM first officer, Class Meurs, heard the tower's instruction and interpreted it correctly. No takeoff clearance. But when the captain pushed the throttles, Meurs hesitated. He said nothing more than a weak, "We are now at takeoff." Meanwhile, the other crew was lost. They had missed the third taxiway exit in the fog. Their captain, Victor Grubbs, ordered the co-pilot to find the next exit. They were now deep on the runway, invisible to all. The controller, alone and overwhelmed, had no radar to see the planes. He relied solely on radio calls. When KLM reported, "ready for takeoff," he assumed they were still at the threshold. He had no idea they were already rolling. So fog alone did not kill 583 people. It was the fog of miscommunication, a single, ambiguous phrase, spoken in a moment of pressure, that turned a routine takeoff into a fireball. Tenerife taught us that in aviation, words are as vital as wings.